It feels so good to be back to full-time engineering. If you missed my last update, I now work as a front-end engineer in my company. I used to be a developer advocate. And in this video, I want to share some of the things that I have learned and I am currently learning as a way to grow in my career. I'm hoping this will be beneficial for you. I have some notes here. I'll just be going through them. So the first thing, feels so good to be back to engineering. I'm writing code again. As a developer advocate, I wrote code a couple of times, but it wasn't like my day-to-day, and it's nice to be in an environment where I can write code day-to-day again. By the way, I have spent most of my life writing React, and just this year I started learning Vue. Vue is what I'm going to be using in my team. Actually, I started learning Vue this year as a way to prepare myself for this role. So I do understand how many things work in Vue right now, but there are still some cases where I think the React way, and I now have to sort of think or research or learn, but what is the Vue way? One of the things that I have learned, this was also a feedback I got last year from my manager in my previous team. He shared with me that I wasn't very proactive, and that was something that I considered. I started working on myself. I think this was the second half of last year, towards the end of last year, but then coming into this year I became more proactive. So even when we had a mid-year conversation, that was one thing he really highlighted, that you have been more proactive, you are taking steps, you are scheduling meetings as soon as possible, you are not delaying or waiting, you are seeking clarity as soon as possible. So that was a very helpful feedback in my career. And then coming into this team, that's something that I also want to be more intentional about, being proactive instead of waiting until something becomes a problem or something becomes a request, or waiting for somebody to respond to something I have said. I should already start making that move. There is obviously a balance to it, because you also don't want to pressure people or whatnot. So even this week I already scheduled meetings with the right stakeholders, or the people that I think my day-to-day would involve, or the people with already historical context of what the team has been doing or the products we've been working on. And going into next week, I also have some meetings scheduled. So that's one thing I'm intentional about. Another thing is also being detailed. This was also a feedback I got last year. So you know how when you work in different companies, you have to create tickets. This could be Jira, or it could be what's the name of that other place? Trello boards. You have to create those tickets, but then you want to keep your tickets detailed so that the stakeholders who are involved, they know what to expect. They know the deadline, they know what the requirements are, they know what the problem you're trying to solve is or are. And that was something that I lacked. My tickets were very generic. They were not very scoped. Some of them might have had deadlines, some of them might have had a scope, but then it wasn't really clear who the stakeholders were, who the dependencies were. All of those things were missing. And then I also worked on that. And then also coming into this year, I also worked on it. And this is also something that my previous manager also highlighted, that you have grown in your proactiveness and also in how detailed you are. And that's something that coming into this team, I want to, maintain that consistency and even grow in areas that I might lack. The other thing I'm learning, or I've actually learned this, especially since this whole AI thing came into the space, is that engineering is not just about writing code. Now, I've spent a lot of time in the front end space, and I think to a good extent I know my way around HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So whatever frameworks might come up, well, React is what I've spent most of my life with. Now it's Vue, but whatever we might use in the future, it won't really be a big problem for me. But what I've learned is that engineering involves a lot of things. Apart from just the code, there is also the decisions that were made, dependencies, technical debt, and why has certain technical debts not been resolved? Why do we do it this way instead of that way? And especially for me, joining a team where they have made so many of these decisions in the past, they have so many dependencies on the products that they offer in that team. It's also important for me that I'm not just here to like, oh, what's the next code to write? But it's also but why was this here in the first place? Also things like backward compatibility. You don't want to make a change that now everybody needs to update to that change before things would work. You want to maintain some sort of compatibility where whatever changes you add are more incremental and people can subscribe to those changes instead of that disrupting their existing workflow. There is a customer feedback and there is also the prioritization. Okay, this customer wants this customer wants this. Which one do you prioritize? But then moving on to my first coding task. I haven't gotten one yet. I think I should be getting one on Monday. I know I just talked about how engineering is not just about code, and I've also been spending time also trying to understand, but what products do we offer? What are the things that are important to us? But I've also come to learn that a very good way to learn something or even learn about a team is to pick up a task. Because when you get that task, it now helps you narrow down on different topics until you get to a solution. So for now, I've been trying to get an overview of what the team offers. These are the product, these are the terms, these are the acronyms, these are the different teams who I've worked with before and I will be working with moving forward. But then there is only so much I can learn as an overview until I actually pick up a task that will now help me touch important areas. It's just the way, instead of just learning React from the documentation, you pick a project and then that way it narrows you down to, okay, now I need to handle state. Okay, now I need to pass props here. Okay, now I need to do this other thing. I'm using React as an example. I think I should be using Vue as an example instead. But just the way it helps you narrow down through certain topics, that's the same way a task can help me, and I think people in general, narrow down on product features and different things that relates to the team. So I was trying to sell a task that I could pick up. I was trying to sell this to my manager on Thursday and he said he has a different task for me, which is nice because at this point any task works. And I think on Monday I should be getting that. Another thing that I am trying to do, I've tried to do this in the past, is to keep a record of every day, like an everyday diary. So what I'm trying to do now is to have a sort of like 20 to 25 minutes at the beginning of the day where I sort of write, these are the things that I want to do today, or these are the things that are pending from the previous day. And then at the end of the day, I have another 15 to 20 minutes where I go over the things I've done through that day and see what would move on to the next, what I am blocked by, and just to keep the current state of things. And then coming to the last point, because this video is already too long, keeping a diary of accomplishments. I've spoken with a lot of engineers all through my career in my previous role, but also at the beginning of this year when I made this decision that I want to go back to full-time engineering, I started speaking with a lot of engineers and learning from them. And one of the things I've learned is that keeping a diary of accomplishments is really good because, well, firstly, it helps you see, or it helps you, how do I put it? Like you actually see that you are doing stuff, you're making impacts, you're making changes. But also when it comes to performance conversations, it's now very helpful where you don't have to start looking through, oh, which ticket did I work on that other time? Oh, what change did I make that other time? You don't have to start thinking about all those things. You can just go to your diary of accomplishment and pick the ones that you want to highlight in these performance conversations. I'm thinking that's something that'll be very helpful for me also in a performance conversation. And this is something you can also try, whether they are small accomplishments or big accomplishments. Just have something for yourself where you can also sort of see your track record in a particular company or in a particular project. There are many other things I'll be learning in this journey. I'm really excited about it, and I'll keep sharing. If you enjoyed this, please share it with another engineer or upcoming engineer that this might be helpful for, and like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and I'll really appreciate that.